Love you. Hey. Mom said he's as quiet as a turtle mouse. Yeah. Watch it, buddy. Exodus chapter number 20. Hey, I got that on camera. Exodus, easy. Exodus chapter number 20. Say, buddy. Probably the most known Old Testament passage is this chapter. Most lost people know or have seen the Ten Commandments. If you ever go into a lot of government buildings, like courthouses and stuff, now I know a lot of them's been taken down. But a lot of people have seen the Ten Commandments hanging or out front. Could they quote them? No, probably not. I'll be honest with you, I don't know many Christians that could quote them. If so, they get the order wrong. And the order is important. As you look at these, I used to break it down 4 and 6. Now I break it down into 3 ways because I've looked at it and I noticed that through this, that the first 4 lead you into the next 6. Really, the 5th one is a hinge. Will take you from the one to the other. But I broke it down like this, and this is what I entitled this. I normally don't do titles on Wednesdays, but the law that isn't Moses. Because we always say the Mosaic Law or Moses' Law. And the Bible does say that, the Law of Moses. But I think that when we look at that in the Bible, even the Pharisees really hung their hat on Moses. And it's not Moses doing the law. And you'll see that in the very first verse. But here's the thing. So these people are already trembling. We know that from the last verse. Because they have, in verse 17, and Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mount, and Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long, waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. I mean, just put yourself at this mountain. My goodness. If you're not afraid of storms, then okay, maybe you're afraid of earthquakes. And if you're not afraid of earthquakes, I can tell you this, and I'm sure there's no comparison, but anybody else, is it eerie sounding to hear a tornado siren go off? It's a little eerie to me. Could you imagine a trumpet that's waxing louder and louder and louder, and there's fire, and there's thunder, and there's lightnings, and then you hear this voice. I don't even know how to explain that. The book of Revelation says it sounds like many waters, so that would be amazing. I can say this, I'd be terrified. I'd be right along with these people. I'd be absolutely terrified. But look at what it says there in the very last verse of chapter 19. So Moses went down unto the people and spake unto them. So Moses comes back down off the mount. He comes down to the people and he's still there. Look at verse number 1 of chapter 20. And God spake all these words. And God spake all these words. I'm going to stop there. I know there's one other word there, but saying. I'll just go ahead and throw it in there. And God spake all these words. And I think sometimes, if we're not very careful, we put an emphasis on man. We'll put an emphasis on man. I'm sure that Charles Spurgeon never was the one who come up with the title that people had given him, the Prince of Preachers. I'm sure Charles Spurgeon never was the one who said, that's what I should be called. But yet man has labeled Charles Spurgeon as the Prince of Preachers. I would say that Charles Spurgeon would agree with me, and he would say, I am not the Prince of Preachers. I am the least of these. So we got to be very careful to not put too much emphasis on Moses. You say, well, I don't think we have that problem today in the church. No, our problem is we put too much emphasis on Paul. Right? So here's the thing that I find so interesting. As you look at the Old Testament and you see the Jews and the Pharisees in the New Testament, how they hung so dearly on Moses, Abraham, the law. Man, is that not church people today? Or our genealogy, we trace this back and we trace this back. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with church history. I love church history. I love it. I love reading books. So we got an association book that I think is absolutely outstanding. I got it from the school, and Brother John got him a copy. And it's got old pictures of people on flatbed trucks going down to the creek. That is awesome to me. I love seeing stuff like that. But here's the thing. When we start looking at, I can trace this back to this person, we got an issue. We got an issue because now we've hung it up on that. That was the same problem with the Jews, right? Well, I can trace it back to this person. Now, I'm not saying anything wrong with, I think churches ought to build churches. Amen? You all would agree with me on that. But let me ask you a question. How are you going to trace your baptism back to John the Baptist? I can't do it. That's a bad problem we got today. I think Paul told Timothy, don't give heed to endless genealogies. And that's where we're at, is we'll focus so much on history. How about this? How about just serve the Lord? How about just serve the Lord? And don't try to put something on somebody else. My friend, Brother TJ, says this. He says, while the whole world goes to hell, a lot of Baptists are worried about being in the right pool of water with the right guy. That's what we're worried about. How about the gospel? How about the gospel? And as you look at this, he says, and God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God. Why is that important? Well, for starters, if the Lord wasn't their God, well, he has no business telling them anything, right? He has no business giving them rules and commands to live by, giving them a law to live by. He has no business doing that. But he said, I am the Lord thy God, and here's what I've done. Not only have I created you. Now, I know that we've been born, right? We've been physically born by our parents, but God had a hand in that. So he has the authority to say, I have created you. Not only have I created you, I've delivered you. He says, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe your Egypt looked a little bit different than mine, but I can tell you this. Everybody's Egypt had a house of bondage involved. Everybody lived it. We were slaves to sin, right? There was no hope. Right? We looked around and it's like, wow, I can't get myself out of this. And Jesus said, I can get you out of that. And thank God for that. But he says, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Watch this. Here's your first one. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Now, this first one is going to pave the way for the rest. Now, what does that mean? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. What does that mean? Well, no idols, right? Let me ask you something. Is somebody like somebody that just, you tell them not to, your kids, you tell them not to do something and they just push it in your face? You ever had, or you be at work or around people and you say, listen, I'd rather you not talk around me like that. I'm a Christian. I don't want to listen to that. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't do it. And then they do it just that much more. That's what God's saying there. That before me, he says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That before me is you're pushing it in God's face. Because essentially that's what we do if we put other gods before God. We are essentially pushing them in his face. And he says in this verse, in verse 23, ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall you make unto you gods of gold. You shouldn't make these things with me, set them up with me. He's saying, don't push this stuff in my face. Don't forget, they didn't do that for you. I did that for you. I'm the one who delivered you. Because that's so important that God starts it off that way. I am your God. Why? 2 reasons. I created you and I delivered you. 2 reasons. That is God's standpoint. Now, why should we look at it and say, well, what's our standpoint? He is our authority. He is allowed to tell us what to do. Why? Because he owns us. You've been bought with a price, right? Anybody got anything? That's just the first one. These are good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And elsewhere, I'm a jealous God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because God's jealousy is so much different than ours. He has the right, he has the authority, the position to say, hey, there should be nobody else in front of me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Now, if our jealousy, yeah, that's a different story. And so God really addresses them. The first 4, and I broke it up this way, and it's three relationships. The first 4 commands are the relationship to the Father. And you know what's going to be so interesting is that is very, very short. That first one. That's so short. And he doesn't really expand much on it. But the 4th one gives the most verses to, the Sabbath day. I find that interesting. He breaks the first one down in just the first verse. It's simply this: thou shalt have no other gods before me, period. Foundation, yeah. Listen, foundations are generally simple. I mean, I think the word is pithy. It's just a pithy statement, and there it is. It's rock solid. How are you going to argue that? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Don't go carving images out. Or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. What's crazy is people, I've heard this, people have, they look at rocks and they say, well, those are gods. That stuff's nuts. What them rocks ever do for you? I mean, how many gods and goddesses did the Egyptians have? Insurmountable. I mean, when you start looking at them, even floods, they had. Which I mean, let me say this: to be a pagan culture, I can understand why they would have a god for the floods. They depended so much on the Nile, so they looked at it and they said, "We've got to have a god that we worship for that." Right? I mean, I kind of understand. We look at that and we're like, God of the flood, what? Well, they depended on the Nile. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's what they did.
Notice everybody God.
Mm-hmm.
The Indians, ours,
Yep.
everybody.
Yeah. You're right. Mm-hmm.
And he covered all.
Mm-hmm.
Earth, rocks, and in the sea,
Mm-hmm.
whales.
Yep. Yeah. You ever seen tree huggers? They Oh yeah, they're all over. They're all over. They all drive Subarus, and that's not a knock against Subarus, but you can look at them, and my dad calls them granolas, and because they all have Columbia jackets on or Patagonia, and they drive a Subaru. Nothing wrong with the Columbia jacket. I've got it too.
Californians are granolas, fruits and nuts.
It's crazy, but people really, I think Colorado is beautiful. Wyoming, beautiful. California has got beautiful places that hasn't burned to the ground yet. But literally, you look at what God has done. But what did Paul say in Romans chapter 1? He said they've worshiped the creation more than the Creator. And that's where it becomes, that's what Moses, really God, is telling the people. Listen, don't worship the ground that you stand on. Don't worship the things that you see. Worship me and me alone. And don't make gods with your own hands and put them up and expect them to be my status, because it's not going to happen. You're wasting your time. Verse number 5, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. What is he saying? He inserts this so that parents, the parental figures, will understand, hey, look, the soil that you fertilize in children. Listen, here's the thing. How is God going to get into the home? Through the parents, right? And now it's kind of flip-flopped. We'll run church buses and we only pick up kids, right? Ain't that crazy? And grandparents are the only ones that are taking kids anymore. And it's nuts. I'm not saying that that's here and that's everybody, but I'm saying that's the general church makeup is kids are getting on the church buses without their parents coming to church. And what a shame. But here's the thing. Because the kids are, how many hours are we here a week? 4? 5? If you're here for breakfast, right? So 4 to 5 hours a week. That's if you don't miss any services. How many hours a week are your kids at home? Well, if they don't drive, then... But a lot, right? And as you've raised them up, as you've seen them grow up, what are the things that you've fertilized in that soil to? Because here's the thing, he says right there in verse number 5, I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So he's insinuating, hey, you're going to pass some things on. And here's what I don't want you to pass on, a cultivation of hate for God. Could you imagine? Why would he have to say that? Think about this. Why would he have to say that right now? Could you imagine you standing at Mount Sinai, hearing the voice and seeing everything that's taking place? You would think that would be something you would not forget. And you'd be passing it on to your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren if you got to see them. Could you imagine having grandkids sitting at your feet and saying, hey, let me ask you a question. Why do we do this Passover thing? What is that all about? Because they'll ask, remember? And them say, let me tell you something. I heard God's voice one day. Not only me, but up to possibly 2 million people at one time. And Moses is standing between us and God at the top of Mount Sinai. We're all scared to death. I seen thunderings, I seen lightnings, I seen the mountain quake, I seen the cloud, I heard his voice, we were given the law. Here's another thing that doesn't make any sense. We hang so much on Moses, but yet Moses isn't the one that's telling the people this. God is. He's speaking directly to them. What do you have in, what was that old movie, The Ten Commandments? I can't remember who's it. Yes. He goes up the mountain, right? And it's just like God is communicating with Moses, and then he comes back down and gives it to the people. That's not how it went. It went this way. God's saying, hey, listen, everybody, now that I've got your attention, listen to what I have to say. Don't hang yourself up on this guy. And I would think that I know that Moses would say, guys, I'm nobody. You better listen to him. And so what is happening here, God is saying, listen, parents, prioritize me in the home. If you'll prioritize me in the home, I will take care of everything else. Mm-hmm.
Showed me this guy, God, that God's name, person,
Mm-hmm.
and another very happy. Why me? Person.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think about the descendants of Abraham right now. How many does he have? Millions, right? And has had millions, go on before. I mean, that is a lot. That is a lot of information that's been passed down from one guy. From one guy. So how many people do you affect? Listen, I don't know if we'll ever know how many people. Right? You think about that. You teach your kids this. Well, guess what? Your kids go to school. And then they teach other people. They say things, and other people's like, Jesus Christ, I don't know who Jesus Christ is. I've never even heard that name before. Well, come Sunday with me. And so it's just passed down to generation. But in verse 5, he's coming down on them. In verse 6, he says, on the other side of that coin, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. That pendulum goes both ways. If you do what's right, hey, all right, I'll show you mercy. If you don't, I'm going to come down on you. Verse 7, and this is you just hit on this. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. We have said, and these days, OMG is just, that's really not what this verse is teaching. I think that's a one aspect you could look at it and say, okay, well, I should not be, using, and we shouldn't use the Lord's name or God's name or Yahweh or Jehovah or however that's even said. We're not for sure. We shouldn't be using his name in vain. We shouldn't. We should not use God's. Listen, when the scribes would rewrite the Old Testament, when they got to the name God, they would take a bath. That's how much reverence they had for the name. And even still today, Jews, whenever they write the word God, they leave the O out and just put a dash. And some of them, when they write out Jehovah, they just, what is it, the consonants that they, yeah. So we don't. That's why we don't know if Yahweh or Jehovah is the right pronunciation of it. But that's kind of just a small insert of what that verse is really teaching. What it's really teaching is it says, thou shalt not take the name. So what do we do when we get born again? When we're in the new covenant with the Lord, we take his name, right? We take his name. And what's a name? What's a name? So think about this. A name is everything. Exactly. And your word. Is this person trustworthy? Is he? Listen, I could say somebody's name that one of you may or may not have had good dealings with. I'm not saying I know anybody, but you would be like, when I hear that name, this is what I think of, because it's tied to the name. So what is tied to the name? He's saying, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. It should not be a lax or a empty, kind of a, useless. It should have some weight to it. It should have some bearing to it. I can't quote the verse, but Jesus said, I believe it was Jesus, said he has magnified his name above, or his word above his name, or something like that. Why? Because if your word doesn't stand good, then your name is not going to stand good, right? I mean, if I was to say, Joe Miller ripped me off $25, and Joe, if you want to after service, you can pay me back. But what's going to happen if a few months later, somebody says, hey man, I seen Joe, and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, did you? Me and Joe's got a date with Destiny. He owes me $25. It's automatically tied to his name. Joe doesn't owe me any money. Do you? No. But it's tied with his name, right? If I said Henry, said, hey man, I seen Henry. Henry don't owe me $25, right? So it's tied with the name. Here's the thing. You're not really so much so going out into the world bearing your name anymore once you get born again. You're bearing his name. You're going out and listen, I don't even know if you're really going out and bearing Chesterview's name as much as you are the Lord's name. Because really, when people look at what was it the other day? The protesters come in a church. What was it? Was it a Catholic? Here's the thing. It doesn't really matter, because to people that are outside of denominationalism or even spiritual, the faith, they look at it all as, well, they're all this way. Well, I don't think so. Here's why I say that. The Catholic Bible that they use, they take that verse out that says, thou shalt not make any graven images. The Douay-Rheims version takes that verse completely out. Why so? Look at what they do. The rose beads and all the stuff, right? All the stuff they've carved and set up. It's crazy. So how are you going to teach on that verse when you got all this stuff behind you? Listen, is that to say that you can't have a painting of Jesus at the Last Supper? No. It's not saying that. It's not saying you can't take a fish and stick it on the back of your car. It's not saying that. It's saying don't make idols out of these things. That's what it's teaching. I've heard people get on that verse and they say, oh, you can't even have this or even a cross, like a sticker of a cross. It's like, what? That's nuts. Anybody got anything? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, we used to say the saying, you got my word on it, and did you find it? I know you've been looking, did you? Well, I know I butchered it, but it...
No, not that bad. It says Philippians 2, 9, 11, powerful biblical passage describing God exalted to the highest place, granting name above all, so that all in heaven, earth, and under the earth will bow and bless to the glory of the Father. Now, I was raised in home in church. OMG didn't apply.
Yeah.
Any variation was
Yeah.
darn it.
Mm-hmm.
That meant
Yeah. 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 Man, I've heard some stuff from people who said, I didn't allow playing cards in the house. Some of y'all may know some people that were like that, because it could possibly turn into this. Do I think that there's anything wrong with that? I don't think so. I think people ought to run their home as strict or however they feel like the Lord sees fit to run their home. If it's, guys, this could possibly turn into this, so we're not going to have it here, then it's not going to be there. Zero tolerance. It's... Uh-huh. Yeah.
sometimes it does.
Yeah.
As she got to that, but I guess I'm expressing in that face value,
Mm-hmm.
it holds a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
you went into the line. I taught my kids,
Mm-hmm.
and it was simply this.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think and I thank God that we have this, but that takes a lot of the material out too. Which do I think that there's anything? No, those are the commands. He just gives a little bit more detail. Like you would look at number 4, and you would think, even today we would think the Sabbath day. Well, I don't have to keep that. And I don't think that our Sabbath is Saturday like the Jews. I think we should have a day of rest. And that being the New Testament, I believe that would be on Sunday. You say, so how is that fair? We get to start our week off because Sunday's the first day of the week. How is that fair that we get to start our week off with rest and then we go to work? Everybody says, oh, it's a Monday. Yeah, but man, Sunday was good. It was good. And now, when you look at this, now listen, when you look at this, you would think, oh man, God's like, work 6, off 1. That's all you get. That's what you get. What is God doing? God is saying, look, I've given you the capabilities to work. Work was never the curse, right? It was never the curse. But what is God saying? He's saying you have to take a day and reflect on everything that I've done. Here's the other thing. When was man created? The 6th day. So the 6 days man created. Well, guess what? His first day is a day of rest. Right? Look at Genesis chapter number 2. That's how it goes. Or Genesis 1. It's the first day is he gets to rest with God and God gets to fellowship with him on his very first day. Now, some people would say, well, he created them on day number 6, but then they went right to work. I don't know. I don't believe that. I think that the first day, his first morning, was rest. Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. How much rest do we take with the Lord? We don't take enough. I agree with that. We don't take near enough. And you say, sometimes we just got to be still and just know that He is God, right? Or know that He is the Lord, I think is the way that the song goes. But, either way, we don't take enough rest to sit back and say, God, you're amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We don't take that time to sit back and collect our thoughts about God and say, God, you have taken good care of me. You know, it's something that I have noticed now that I'm 40 is God has taken good care of me. I don't think sometimes, I don't think on that enough, but God has taken good care of me. He's taken the best care of me. And I thank God that God has put the people in my life, the family that I have, the friends that I have, the church, that I get to the enjoyable treat of pastoring. Listen, I cannot see myself anywhere else because I look at, God, this is what you have for me right now. And I'm sorry if you feel otherwise, but I'm just kidding. But seriously, I just thank God that at 40, this is where I'm at. This is what He's done for me. And listen, because what happens is what's getting ready to transition into is how we treat other people in covetousness. I've heard of some pastors that coveted other churches. They wanted to pastor this church, and it's like, be content, man. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you got where you wanted, how long would it be good? Probably not long, because it's not where you're supposed to be. Look at verse number. We got about 5 minutes left here. We're not going to get very far, but that's okay. Verse number 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. Now remember, He's already instituted the Sabbath day is going to be a double portion. You're going to get double the food that you need. So you don't have to go out and work for it. You don't have to go out and pick it up. You pick it up the day before. Verse 10, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it, or made it holy. You just think about that. I mean, listen, we've talked about this before. The Sabbath day was a blessing for both lost and saved. Everybody is to have a day of rest. Ain't that awesome? Now, I don't think that people take advantage of that. I don't think so.
Did you? Nothing was car dealership. Nothing was open. Home Depot was that. 80 open. They call the food.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything now pretty much is open. Everything. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Normally Monday. Normally. That's the day I try to keep, nothing happening. But it doesn't work that way sometimes. Just catch it when you can. Is it? We'll start hanging out together. Yeah, you don't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Just get out of the house. Anybody else? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and what is, because your labor is different than my labor. Your labor is different than Jason's labor and Brian's labor, and Steve never stops. So there's that. And John Mounts never stops, and Joe never stops. I mean, she's answering the phone. So it's different, can I tell you, I'll tell you this. I can work a full day at a job. I can work a full day at a job, 10 hours a day, no problem. I go and see two people and sit at their house for 2 hours apiece. I'm about ready to fall asleep on their couch. That is the most it's draining. It's draining. I left your house the other day. I was fine as frog hair. If we would have went in and sat down and watched, Gary Hamrick on YouTube, I'd have been probably passing out on the couch. I don't know why, but it's exhausting. And I can drive to Lexington and see people in the hospital and come back, and I'll drive, and I'm not tired at all. But if I go sit in their home and sit there and talk to them, I'm like, wow, RD, you got the rifleman on again. It's like, wow, it's tough. I don't know why it's like that, but it is. Well, I just sleep out there.
That Sabbath rest, God created those we physically,
Mm-hmm.
but He offered that Sabbath rest on the day of celebration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Shouldn't we do that every day, though? Yeah, I feel like we should do that every day. There should be a time of rest and. Yeah, yeah, and I think that is the biblical approach. Is earlier the better. I'll tell you this: it don't work that way around my house because Noah is up early, and so you just catch it when you can catch it. My wife will get their schoolwork done on Thursday or Friday, and she's like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read. And so you just catch it when you can catch it. I'll do mine generally at night, and I'll stay up till probably 11 or 12 o'clock and stay in the garage and go through my stuff and look at what I got. Oh, thought he was talking to me. But you just get it when you can get it. And listen, that is the most peaceful time. Is everybody's quiet, and I've got one single light on in the garage. And I'm sitting there with my coffee or my energy drink, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and you're like, why are you drinking an energy drink at 11 o'clock at night? I'm trying to rest. Give me my space, okay? It's peaceful. It is. It's a peaceful time. Until Noah wakes up. We're not going to get to the hinge verse. We got through the first 11. But that's okay because the next verses are really, really good that we need to. But, pay close attention to those verses that we read, really the relationship to the Father. And then verse number 12 is dedicated at one point to itself, relationship to the family. And then it's going to be relationship to the fellow man. Because that's really the way that, and here's the thing, like I said, verse 12 is your hinge verse. It really is, if this isn't right, this isn't going to be right. So you got to pay attention to how that's set up. Anybody got anything? All right. Brother Joe, you got us a song?